Hello and welcome back. This is going to be a Warcraft 3 audio commentary on a 4v4 random team game on Battleground. And this replay was actually submitted by a Wc3 member playing Warcraft 26 in a forum about 4v4 random team games. So anyway, I'm going to go through this replay and sort of do some commentary on what I think about the game and everything. So we've got, he's going to be the red player, fresh account 3 here. He is, his build order so far has been Ziggurat, Crypt, and now an Altar. So an early Altar build, somewhat early Altar build. And then we've got his 2 elf allies and then another undead ally. And this undead ally looks to be getting his, he probably went Crypt, Graveyard, Ziggurat, Altar, or Altar Ziggurat. So he got the Graveyard a little bit sooner than Red did, it looks like. So yeah, but Red looks like he's walled off his gold mine. This looks like a pretty solid base build. Assuming that his hero doesn't get trapped in there, probably can get out. But anyway, you want to get the, as he's done, it's always pretty useful to have that first Ziggurat near the gold mine, so you can potentially get a Ruben Tower to ward off any potential harassment. He's not an edge spawn, so it maybe isn't quite as big of a problem, though there's still the possibility. Just because you're not an edge spawn player doesn't mean that you won't get harassed. So purple's going to be going for a, it looks like he's going for a tavern hero as he sent a list to the altar. Hasn't started his hero at the as regular. Hasn't started a regular hero at his altar, and he's going for archers. Blue is also going for archers, and he's going for a Keeper of the Grove. I'm not sure if he can get his hero out from this base build. We'll see if he comes out on the right or the left. So, okay, he came out on the right. If he came out on the other side, I'm not entirely sure he could have got that hero out. But either way, he's throwing up a Hunter Saw. He's got 2 archers so far. Purple's picked up a Tinker. It looks like Red is going for, he's got 4 ghouls. Now he's starting to build Fiends. So this is likely indicates that he wants to sort of prioritize teching versus getting Fiends quickly. Though actually he's teching not even as quickly as Yellow here. So maybe not quite prioritizing teching quite that much. So Yellow also has their Ruben Tower here near his altar. He's got a pitlord for beetles. So now on the other side, we've got Orange with a Farseer Grunts. We've got Pink going for a Blade Master Grunts. Teal with a Mountain King and Footman. And then Green with a Death Knight and Fiend. So pretty similar build. Notice he also has the Ruben Tower near his altar there, or sorry, near his gold mine. Pretty common stuff. So far, Red is creeping this camp. It's pretty hard to draw this camp all the way back to your Blight due to the map and the creep location. So looks like he sort of tried to lure them. He did pretty well there, but you know you can't take quite as much advantage of the Blight as some other maps. So anyway, we've got Teal and Pink creeping together, doing a pretty decent job. He pulls Militia. We've got Teal already teching. We've got Pink already teching. Pretty much everybody except for Green is already on the way to tier 2. Yellow looks to be maybe the closest. Let's see, is Orange? Yeah, Yellow looks like he's going to be in the lead here in terms of the tech. But otherwise, everybody's just doing some creeping. Actually, everybody's doing a very similar creep pattern, going for their green camp and then the orange troll camp. Now I've got Teal and Green here. So the other team looks like they have a lot of Hero Nuke. They've got a Blade Master, a Mountain King, and a Death Knight. The Death Knight's not going to be sort of that effective in terms of offense against 2 undead players. And here we have blue losing a bunch of archers. This is one of the big problems going for an archer early opening. If blue had huntresses here, it would have been much less likely for him to lose units to grunts and a blade master and wolves, assuming he micros even a little bit, just because of the movement speed, and also obviously the grunts and the wolves are going to do extra damage to the archers. So that's that's sort of the risk, and that's one of the reasons why I don't, in the early game, I don't tend to run around with archers a whole lot. If I do go archers, I mostly creep, and I'm sort of very careful to try to avoid, fighting battles where I'm, sort of vulnerable to stuff like, what you just saw. And now yellow's sort of in a similar position, though he does have some healing that he can use with his Death Knight here. But again, he's very outnumbered. It looks like he's only got 2 fiends, so this is pretty bad spot for them. They do end up forcing Orange to Town Portal, but it didn't look like they killed too many things. So now we've got red and purple defending against green and teal. So this is a pretty close battle because teal's got teal's got defend footman, and somebody was using lightning shield. I'm not sure exactly who that helped more or less, but defend footmen are very strong against archers. They're strong against the fairly strong against the tinker if they focus the factory down pretty quick, and also the trolls defend's going to be very strong. Though the fiends are not exactly great against the archers due to Luna's Grace, and again, fiends against fiends is pretty much a tie. But fighting inside of purple's base really allowed them to, and again with the pitlord, allows them to fend that off fairly easily. It looks like green lost a bunch. I don't think teal lost quite as much there, but so now I've got the tier 2 situation. Red's already actually, I say tier 2, Red's already very far into his tech to tier 3. Yellow's already got his tier 3, and he's got Temples of the Damned, so he's getting some necromancers, it looks like. And now I've got blue here once again, sort of dancing in and out with the Keeper of the Grove huntresses. Again, this is pretty standard stuff. He needs to be very careful not to get hexed here. Oh, and he messed up. He did get hexed. Turning around was very pointless there. Again, he pays for it pretty dearly. And again, Unholy Frenzy, sort of an underrated ability here. It gives plus 75% attack speed. We've got red and purple sort of having different ideas maybe on what to creep, but yeah, they're going to get these pretty large camps down with web and archers and all that. The pitlord actually is a pretty solid hero choice in my opinion, due to if you go for Howl of Terror in a 4v4 context, the upside is pretty high in a lot of scenarios. In big team battles, you have the chance to reduce a lot of damage. On the flip side, in terms of burst damage, obviously he doesn't offer the same impact as the Lich in terms of hit and run, in terms of right at tier 2. He's more of a support hero than anything else. But again, he's got decent stats. His movement speed is good. His hit points and damage output are good. So, and again, like I said, starting at 30% damage reduction on Howl of Terror, the radius is pretty great compared to something like Drunken Haze, sort of similar ability. But anyway, we have another battle here. So it looks like we're getting a couple of 2 versus 2 sort of split battles all throughout this game. Teal has got, looks like 1 sorceress and 1 priest. He's still got defend, obviously, and he's added a paladin, so he's got a decent amount of nuke to go against the undead player. Though, as he has, red has 2 strength heroes, he's not exact, and one of them obviously can heal the other. The Death Knight can heal the Pitlord. It's not really that bad of a scenario here. And fighting in purple's base, when all these tier 2 and tier 1 units are popping out, he's going for the the tri-unit mix with archers, dots, and dryads. Now I've got blue joining in from the back. Huntress is going to be pretty solid against footmen and pretty solid against fiends. It looks like he's also adding Druids of the Claw. Hasn't got the bear upgrade yet, but this battle is going to be to the red player's benefit. in his teams. It looks like Blue's got a surround on this Shadow Hunter. The Shadow Hunter had 240 mana, so it looks like he wasn't really using him all that effectively. Not only getting him surrounded, but throughout that battle, he apparently had tons of mana left over. Let's see if he. Okay, so he was level 1, so assuming that he probably, well, yeah, he had Hex, I know for sure. So saw seeing him use it earlier. So he definitely shouldn't have had that much mana if he was using him properly, but I don't think a couple more hexes or 3 more hexes would have turned the battle. But you just, you obviously want to be getting some use out of your second hero. Anyway, Teal ends up getting entangled, and he's got a pretty slow hero and army anyway, so he gets has to burn a town portal. Red is getting Frostworms at a pretty timely fashion here. Frostworms arguably going to be very strong, especially if he gets together with Yellow and gets Unholy Frenzy on them. But just in general, they're pretty strong. He's got 2/1 upgrades on the Frostworms already, so that's that's really solid. Now he's sort of light on the Fiends, and looking at Yellow, he is switching to Gargoyles, so he's not gonna have Fiends either. It looks like, but Purple of course has a lot of anti-air archers, Druza, Talon, and Dryads, and again the Pitlord is gonna offer Howl of Terror as sort of anti-air. Oh, it's going to affect air units obviously. So -12 on these Wind Riders. That's a it's a pretty big damage drop off, and for a level 1 ability. So yeah, that they force a town portal there, and again, Fiends are pretty obviously useful against the Wind Riders. Gargs will also be fairly decent there, but Bat Riders are going to sort of deal with the Gargs fairly well. So, but anyway, they have a pretty solid sort of mix of units. If Blue uses Roar properly, that's going to be a huge jump too. You've got -30% from Howl of Terror. Actually, if it's level 2, you're going to have -40%, and then so that's a big swing damage reduction. And then you've got +25% from Roar, and then +75% on anything that gets Unholy Frenzy. So that's a really big in conjunction with these attack upgrades that Red has on his units is going to be really solid. It doesn't look like Blue's actually, he's got 2/1 upgrades on the Bears, so that he does have some attack upgrades. Now let's check out Howl of Terror action here. -12 on the unupgraded Tauren. That's just their base damage, and then so that's it's a pretty large amount. -16 on a Wind Rider with upgrades. So that's sort of one of the things about Howl of Terror. Looking at this battle, it looks like with the Frostworms and the Bears and just this mix of stuff that they're probably going to win, even though they're fighting near these towers. You've got all these Necromancers to pop out some skeletons and whatever. But yeah, again, you look at this. Well, there was an Unholy Frenzy on that worm, so. But yeah, +75%. I mean, there's a downside to Unholy Frenzy in that you're losing, I think it's 4 hit points a second. But again, you look at a Frostworm, that's pretty negligible relative to their total health. And the other point about that is, if you want to sort of do the math there, you got what's 75% of a Frostworm's DPS with 2 attack upgrades. I want to say their DPS is somewhere around, with 2 attack upgrades, is probably somewhere around 40, I think. So 75% of 40 is going to be way more than 4. It's going to be about let's see, 10, 4, 2. It's going to be about 30 DPS, something like that. So if I did the math correctly there. So so yeah, well, I mean, that was easy math. I was sort of making it harder in my head than it was, but yeah, about 30 damage a second if my numbers were correct there. So So yeah, red did really pretty well there. He got a lot of unit kills, hero kills. Some of the effect of the frost worms is more support, so that's not exactly going to show up, arguably, in the score. But it's almost like having, maybe like Dryad slow poison, or sorceress level slow, or something similar to something like that, which doesn't exactly show up just for red, but again, his allies also had support spells, so. But he got the top score in this game, pretty good there. In terms of unit kills, he killed more than everybody except for Orange, and I would say his army was a little bit more versatile than Orange's was, arguably. Uh, it was less of a glass cannon type army. He ended up with 72 food versus Orange's 48. That probably speaks to sort of efficiency throughout the game, not losing a bunch of units and all that. Some of that is going to come into play there. And then the hero kills, well, it was even too. So, Orange did get a lot of kills there, but I don't know if the units, in terms of experience-wise, if they were the same. Let's see, experience gained. Yeah, Red gained a lot more experience, which leads me to believe the things that he was killing were more higher level units or heroes. So something maybe Orange's heroes were just dead for more time. I don't know, but anyway, that's sort of the outlook on this game. Red's build order looked pretty solid. He got his second hero on time. Micro wise, he had web ready. He had pretty solid allies, it seemed. Yellow's build order looked kind of a little bit bizarre, though he had useful units. I mean, it's just a little bit weird to see gargoyles versus fiends often. I mean, in the case that the orc player doesn't go for bat riders and you're not up against where you mostly avoid enemy fiends with a web, gargoyles are going to be fine. Though there's more of a risk that you do run into bat riders, that you do run into, if you're against an undead player, you do run into web. So, also, one thing the humans can do if they get the siege engines or flying machines or whatever, those are going to be much more, I mean, they're going to be way more effective against gargs. They're really not going to do anything against fiends, so it's sort of a risk reward when you're going for gargoyles. Obviously, they have more DPS against air targets, assuming they're actually hitting them with their melee attack versus fiends hitting them with their regular attacks. But the flips, and again, they only cost 2 food versus 3. They cost less gold, and But they do have less hit points, I believe. I'm not sure exactly the number there, but yeah, less hit points, and again, being vulnerable to those things I mentioned. Web, bat rider, concoction, siege engines, flying machines if they show up. All those things are going to be much more effective against gargoyles. On the flip side, ground units don't hit gargoyles, so it really depends on what you're up against. But which one's going to be the better anti-air. But anyway, that was a pretty good game in terms of what could be done different. I don't know if Red, I wasn't paying close attention if he got an Orb of Corruption or not. If he didn't, that's it's probably really a useful thing. Though not having the Lich makes it a little bit awkward. Though having an Orb on the Pitlord or the Death Knight allows them to hit Wind Riders that are even ones that aren't webbed. So that could be arguably somewhat useful. And again, just the damage bonus from that Orb of Corruption is pretty huge. It's just a little bit more odd or clumsy using it on a melee hero. You can't exactly pick your targets as easily. I mean, you can, but you're going to put your hero at risk going for certain targets. Whereas with a Lich having range, it's not going to be as big of a deal. Then again, though, on the flip side, the Pit Lord, oftentimes you're going to want to get him into the middle of the battle, and you can heal him, and he's got a lot of hit points. And with Howl of Terror, it's not quite as depending on the situation. Generally, if the battles are sort of even numerically, like 4 players against 4 players, you've got a high level Pit Lord, you maybe have a healing potion, you're ready with level 2 or 3 Death Coil. You're level like 2 or 3 or 4, so you've got decent hit points on the Pit Lord. Again, at level 3, you're going to have hopefully level 2 Howl of Terror, helping to boost your sort of survival capabilities or survivability of the Pit Lord. So it's not that big of a problem if they're focusing down the Pit Lord, assuming that you have coil ready. If you can, you micro them back. And worst comes to worst, even if they do kill your Pit Lord, at level 2 or 3, even 4, I mean, obviously it's a big loss to lose a hero over level 2. I mean, even losing level 2 hero is bad enough, but once it gets to level 3, 4, 5, those type of hero levels, it's a very big loss. But Howl of Terror lasts a decent amount of time, and if they've spent all that time focusing down your strength hero as you're healing it, as they have reduced damage, that's going to take them a long time where they could have otherwise been focusing something else. And again, hero armor is sort of right up there with fortified armor in terms of damage reduction. It's pretty much one of the better or the best armor types. Right there with fortified armor, basically against a lot of different types of attacks in terms of the damage reduction. So if they spent the first half of the battle not getting any bonus damage, if they say they have a bunch of magic damage and you've got a bunch of heavy armor targets, but they're focusing your hero instead, well, they're missing out on that bonus damage. Same thing with piercing attacks. Units with piercing damage, they get pretty big reductions against. Let's see the exact numbers just to be sort of thorough here. Yeah, they only do 50% piercing damage. It's only going to get 50% against heroes. Magic damage is only going to get 50% against heroes. And then spells are going to get 70% damage against heroes. So, and then, yeah, so, you think about that, and, you're already reducing their damage with Howl of Terror, something like 30-40%. And then add on top of that another, 50% reduction to any piercing damage units and any magic damage units, and the odd instance you're focusing with siege, same thing, 50%. And if you're throwing spells at the hero, it's dropping at 30%. So you add all that stuff up, and it's like, okay, well, sure, you lost your hero, but think about the fact that it could have been, that damage could have been doubled, if it's hitting something that doesn't even give it a bonus. If it's just hitting targets that have, armor that take 100% damage from that, then that's double the damage that's being missed out on while they're focusing your hero. Now, obviously, heroes are a very big part of the game, especially once they get high level, and they get a lot of experience. They cost a lot to revive. And again, if it's like your hero with a town portal, that adds another dimension there, obviously. But if your secondary hero, and they have to spend all that time focusing it down, it might not be worth it. Is sort of what I'm saying. The fact that you're only doing 50% damage from a lot of your units. Now normal damage is going to do 100% damage against heroes. Same with hero attacks, chaos damage. But a lot of the units obviously are going to be piercing or siege at most stages of the game. You've got a lot of players going for mass fiends. You got a lot of players for going for frostworms, griffins, chimera, casters, mortar teams in some instances. Though that's not exactly what you generally focus heroes with, especially strength heroes. But again, piercing and magic damage are pretty core in most sort of strategies. and yeah, and spell damage. You know, if you're gonna focus down, you know, a hero with, you know, Death Coil, Storm Bolt, you know, all these abilities, that's gonna get reduced against heroes by 30. You know, not 50%, by only 30%, but it's still a substantial number. Now, obviously, killing, you know, a level 4 Pit Lord versus killing, you know, say a Fiend or you know, many different units obviously aren't going to rise to the level of, you know, a hero that's strong, but it's sort of, you know, like I said, it really depends on the scenario. So, and yeah, you know, if you can manage to pick up a staff from one of your allies, you know, human or elf ally, pick up a staff of sanctuary or pick up a staff of preservation, um, you know, that can obviously be really sort of. I mean, I've rarely seen that done with undead. But again, it's, you know, if you can swing that, you know, if you got an ally that just has a shop, you know, it's tier 2 or 3 for elf or human, then you know, that's generally it can obviously be very effective, because, you know, think about the scenario where, like I said, you know, you send your pit lord into the battle, you're healing it, he's level 4, you're casting Howl of Terror. He's like a big focus, you know, kind of like a frost worm. He's a big target. He's going to be right there in the middle of the battle. People are like, oh, there's a pit lord. You know, it's kind of a underused hero, and people are like, well, you know, there's, you know, he's right there. I can just focus him down. It's no big deal. What they should be thinking is, well, he can heal him. He's a strength hero. We've got all this damage reduction. You know, it's probably not the best target in most scenarios, but a lot of times people will focus him down, even though you do have healing, you know, on him. And again, as a strength hero, he's much less susceptible, unlike if you were to run like a lich into the battle first or something like that. And again, with the lich, you don't get uh, you don't really get the same damage reduction. Now you can use Frost Armor, you can use Frost Nova, and that's sort of going to limit the damage, but it doesn't limit it to the degree that the Howl of Terror does, generally. So, and again, Howl of Terror also applies to mechanical units. I'm 99% sure about. So that includes, you know, in terms of fighting off tanks, that's pretty solid. Also with Cleave, Cleave or Rain of Fire, both also are going to affect tanks. So he's, you know, he's a pretty good hero against, you know, he's better in some sense against those unit types. You know, also gyros, you know, he's going to get that impact. Glaive throwers, demolishers, in the instance that you see those, you know, he can be helpful against those. So, so yeah, he does offer some benefits. Again, I sort of, I do sort of like the idea of getting him second, because having that Death Knight early in the game, a lot of times you need that healing early, and you sort of want the healing early and the aura early to get, you know, in and out of battles quicker, to micro your fiends. You know, otherwise you can get units chased down way too easily, and without healing, it can be very problematic when you get harassed. So, you know, I sort of do like the Death Knight first, and then again, having level 2 and or 3 Death Coil later on for both healing and offensive purposes, and also potentially level 2 Unholy Aura, or level, you know, 1 Death Pact, you know, as sort of a you know, desperation, you know, in case you really need it in some sense, can be very useful. You know, they'll say, oh, well, I can't focus the Pit Lord. He can heal the Pit Lord. I'll just, kind of like with a Paladin, well, I'll just focus, you know, the Death Knight instead. How's he going to heal? Well, he's got Death Pact. So, you know, you got ways to sort of save both your heroes in, you know, in case you need it. And also offensive capabilities, you know, more offensive capabilities. The Death Knight is more of a, potentially more of a active, aggressive type hero. You know, it makes your units move quicker, which, you know, is always useful. And it also, and not only your units, but your allies' units and heroes as well. And then, like I said, Death Coil, both sort of offensive capability and healing, obviously. So, pretty good there. We had a player go for the Tinker. I didn't really focus too much on him, but he's got his uses in terms of creeping. That map specifically, probably really good, because certain creep camps have really strong creeps are really high DPS. Like, those middle camps have dragon and 3 ogre magi's, which bloodlust each other, and it gets sort of crazy. Having those that pocket factory and those robo goblins to sort of tank those bigger creeps when possible is pretty solid. Again, the same with the like the troll camps, the mercenary camps, all those. The pocket factory is going to be very useful against those camps as well. So yeah, that's about what I would sort of really the takeaways from this game. I didn't see any real glaring weaknesses on either side that I really took notice of. I guess it might have not been a great idea to do those 2-player split attacks. There were certain points where for at least a little bit, some of the players were in like a 1 versus 2 or things like that, and they might have been better off to get together 4 players, hit 1 target. I don't know if it would have totally changed the outcome. The other side seemed to be playing more the aggressor early on, attacking into the elf base, several different times, and I don't know if that really worked out so well for them. The elf player starting with archers, I don't know that I would really recommend that. In terms of creeping, they're not terrible, but in the early game, I just generally don't think they're the best option. They are cheaper, and obviously they come out quicker since you don't need a Hunter's Hall, but there's sort of a liability in the mid game, or sort of towards the mid game, and then when they would really shine or they really become useful is when players start fielding armies with like Wind Riders, potentially Frostworms, Destroyers, Hippogriff Riders to some degree. Even then, they're still sort of vulnerable to certain stuff, but at least they have targets that they're going to get bonus damage against more often. I mean, against like Huntresses, I guess they still do bonus damage, but that's sort of a tie almost, because Huntresses also get bonus damage against them. They move around quicker, so yeah, that's sort of pretty close toss up there on those. If you outnumber the Huntresses, obviously with archers, a lot of times you can do really well, but anyway, that's just sort of my takeaway on the unit choices there, the hero choices. Keeper, one of my sort of favorite choices with Elf, specifically for the early and mid game strength, and he's got a really good ultimate, so late game he's not terrible. Again, Thorn's aura is probably one of the weaker auras. It's sort of very situational, and it's out of your hands. It depends on what the enemy gets, but again, melee units in the early to mid game are fairly common. Melee heroes, you've got the Death Knight, Crypt Lord, Pitlord, Blade Master, Mountain King, Paladin, Horn Chieftain, Demon Hunter, Warden. You've got plenty of melee heroes out there. Tinker, Beastmaster, Alchemist. You got plenty of melee heroes out there that are sort of pretty commonly seen. Again, the Alchemist is one of the least common heroes, but and then the Tinker is up there as well. But those are you see them pop up every now and then, and reflecting 10-20% damage, and not only heroes, but gargoyles, footmen, grunts on down the line. It's something. I mean, it's generally not a dead ability, at least up into mid game. In the later stages, when players are sort of more apt to have ranged units, to have flying units that gargoyles and hippogriffs are still melee, so it's potentially can turn the tide a little bit, but the numbers don't come up to I think Vampiric Aura probably comes out better than Thorn's Aura in that scenario. So but in most situations based on the numbers. Now there are some slight differences. I think I forget one of the auras between Vampiric Aura and Thorn's Aura. It calculates its values before armor and then after armor. So in some circumstances, if there's like high armor values, then one is better than the other. I can't remember. I can't remember which one it is that's better. So that's, you know, that's a question mark. But again, the armor values generally aren't that, you know, for a lot of units just aren't that high to make it to make up the difference between, you know, I think it's 10, 20, 30% for Thorn's aura, and it's 15, 30, 45 for Vampiric aura. So, you know, it comes down to, you know, does that armor value, uh, does that armor calculation make up the difference or not? And again, it depends. So, whichever one I think it that makes me think that it's Thorn's aura that uh, that doesn't take into account the armor, if I remember correctly, or, you know, the damage reflected is, uh, you know, the value, you know, the raw value before the damage is reduced by armor, I think. So, but anyway, that's a really minute point, and again, that didn't really come up very much in this game replay. So anyway, that's going to be the end of the commentary and the audio. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you've got any comments, you know, hit me up in the comments there or whatnot. And this is ScryMind signing out.